Thanks for coming in. Friday's Ceramics. Today we're going to make some holiday-inspired salt and pepper shakers. Tree and a snowman. So nothing too crazy. But maybe if you haven't worked at this kind of like small scale before, it might be a good challenge for you. But pretty much the same kind of techniques that we've been working on so far in the semester. And I'm kind of envisioning making them kind of like this, and then using the white slip that I have as a sgraffito kind of thing going on. So having like a sgraffito tree, and then the snow obviously would mostly be the white slip, but like doing sgraffito for like some maybe a little hand holding a broom or whatever they hold. What do snowmen hold? Bats? Truncheons? I can't remember. Stun guns. This one still needs a foot. I didn't put a foot on this one. So this one, we'll do a foot today for this one probably too. Give it a little lift like this one, so that depending on what you get to plug up your shaker, if you get like a cork that sticks out a little bit, hopefully this will give you some cover there. BJ, Melissa, Connie, thanks for coming in, guys. It is cold out here today. I might have to go grab a sweater or something before too long. Ridiculous. It's almost Baltic out here. What is this? Estonia? It's freezing. Next week is going to be our last week before Christmas break, which is, I think, going to be like a 2-week break. I'm not sure. I'll find out before too long. And actually, even next week is one of those weird. It's supposed to be like one of those weird half weeks, but I can still get paid, so I'm gonna go ahead and do the class anyway. It's kind of interesting how the way they have us doing our hours with the online thing, because these half weeks and these like one-off holidays, we can still meet and get paid for that. Whereas like before, obviously we wouldn't be able to meet because the building would be locked. So it's not like, even if I drove up there, we wouldn't get in. So it's kind of interesting, but yeah. Totally legal, and a good loophole to exploit while we're allowed to. Thanks, Connie. Connie's like, sweet, my tax dollars are helping David run schemes. I mean, it's not really much of a scheme, but okay, I'm collecting. This is my clay too. So the other good thing about working small like this is it doesn't take much clay. Where's my template at? Oh, here it is. Okay. So I did templates for this. As you can see, the thing I pretty much do every single time I need to make a template, I fold paper in half. And in the case of the snowman, a big circle, medium circle, small circle. The big circle on the bottom, make sure you kind of cut part of that off so it's flat on the bottom. That way it'll stand up. Here, I'll show you real quick what I mean. So you want to flatten that bottom so it'll still stand. But otherwise, you know, not really too much to note there. God damn it, I left my ruler inside. Apologize for saying ruler. This is probably, I think this was like 2.5 inches across, I think at the wider point down here. And I want to say it was like 3.5 inches tall. Yeah, that seems right. I think my palm is about 4 inches. So this was, I believe, 2.5 inches across and 3.5 inches tall. And the tree had similar dimensions. The tree also, I did the same thing. I folded it in half, did a right triangle, and then opened it. And you'll notice my template, I did the little nose things that trees have when you draw them like that. But by the time I was cutting out the slab, I was like, you know, that's not gonna play out very well. So I changed that plan and I just made it as a triangle. But yeah. And I think this is similar dimensions. You got 2.5 inches at the widest point down here and 3.5 inches tall. So that's the scale that we're in. 2.5 by 3.5. And 2.5 by 3.5. And you probably do need to make paper templates for this because you have to figure you need to cut out the same snowman or snow woman or whatever, or snow zer. You need to cut that out twice. So you have a front and a back, right? And the same with the tree. You need to cut that out twice. So you probably do need a template so you can make sure you get the same shape. And yeah, we need to roll out a slab, but I left my rolling pin inside, so I'll be right back. I'll get some coffee too while I'm in there. Okay, give me 1 second. Okay. So rolling pin, paint mixing sticks. The paint mixing sticks. Okay, so the tree's 3 inches across at the bottom, but it is 3.5 tall. The tree is 3 inches across. It's a little bit wider than the snowman. The snowman is 2.5 though. So we're going to use the paint mixing sticks to roll out our slab. When you're working this small, you can actually make your slabs a little bit thinner than 1/4 of an inch if you want to. And 1/4 of an inch is the thickness of these paint mixing sticks. So if you want, you can use these kind of like as a guide to get down to 1/4 of an inch, and then just roll a little bit more to go a little bit more a little bit thinner, but you know, exercise a little bit of caution there. You don't want to make this paper thin, but you can go a little bit thinner than 1/4 inch if you want. I would say you could probably go down to almost like 1/8 inch on something like this. Okay, so this is rolled out to 1/4 inch thickness. And so I might roll it a little bit more like that, and then flip it around 90 degrees and roll it a little bit more. And I'll call that good. So it's a little bit thinner than 1/4 inch. You know, not dramatically thinner, but just a little bit thinner. I would say it's probably like 3/16 inch at this point. It's not quite 1/8, but it's not quite 1/4. It is 3/16. And let's see. We're going to compress the slab. So apply a little bit of moisture like that, and squeegee the surface. And then if you are using recycled clay like I am, you might see some air bubbles in your slab. So go ahead and stab those. Stab those air bubbles. I'm gonna make slip later or something. Cool. If you want to do textures on this slab, I think this is probably a pretty okay project for that. So you could do textures now if you wanted to. One of the the stamp kind of things like this that we made, or if you have any of those rubber mats that they sell, I think those are okay for this project. I'm going to do the sgraffito, so I'm not going to texture the slab because I'm going to do the sgraffito on it once it's formed. So I don't really want to do that. Okay, let's see. Maybe I should maybe I should make my triangle. Maybe I should just take these off now while I'm looking at it. While I'm looking at it. All right, let's go ahead and do it. Cut out 2 snowmen. Cut out 2 triangles. As Pink said, let's get this party started. As the great Pink of Pinkson said, Pink of Canterbury, let's get this party started, y'all. As the influential philosopher Pink said, let us get this party started. So, I mean, you could do other shapes too. You could probably do like a ginger man, kind of like similar to the gingerbread man, similar to like the snowman. Probably like the gingerbread man, you probably want to do something where like you don't have his legs separate. It's just like one kind of dress shape. And then you'd like sgraffito the individual legs to make it like, designed like that. But it might be hard to have 2 separate legs for these forms. So I maybe wouldn't do like a ginger man with 2 separate legs. Kind of just do it as like a single block of leg. Yeah, there you go, Melissa. Get into the spirit. There was another similar song by Andrew WK called Let's Get a Party Started or something like that. If you recall that, it was like, let's get a party started, let's get a party started, let's get a party started. And then we party hard. That song. And I think it came out a year or 2 before Pink did her party started song. Now, the thing about Andrew WK, the reason I bring that up is there's conspiracy theories surrounding him as far as like him not being one person, like that maybe there was multiple Andrew WKs. It's kind of fascinating. I don't know much about it, and I haven't looked into it recently, but like people thought that maybe he was like a CIA op or psyop kind of thing, kind of like the Laurel Canyon hippies, like back in the 60s, like the way the CIA was like funding them and shit. Andrew WK. Maybe I'll send that out with the emails if I find a good Andrew WK conspiracy documentary. Oh yeah, that's another good point, Barbara. If you have cookie cutters, like Christmas Man cookie cutters or other stuff like that, yeah, you could definitely use those for these shapes. Yeah, most definitely. So if you don't want to do the template, yeah, and those are probably a good size too, because they're probably pretty much this size. So yeah, very good idea, Barbara. I would not like use the cookie cutter and just like press through. I would place the cookie cutter onto the clay, and then I would use my needle tool to like trace that line. You know what I mean? I would not use the cookie cutter as like the actual cutting device, because getting that clay out of the cookie cutter is going to be probably pretty difficult. So that's the only thing I would maybe caution about that. But otherwise, yeah, great idea. Okay, let's get rid of this excess stuff here. Mm-mm-mm. And because these are kind of small, I would recommend that you put them into a bag while you work on the other ones, just so that they don't dry too much. Because small stuff like this can dry. It can dry kind of fast on you. So. Mm-mm-mm. Mm-mm-mm. I think I just dropped a giant chunk of clay in my coffee. Ah, yeah. Okay. Save one of these guys over here. Yep. Okay, so I'm going to bevel the sides of the triangle, the Christmas tree, NEE triangle, knee, however you pronounce that. Christmas tree, previously triangle. And the bevel here, you're looking for 45 degrees or close to it. You know how this is. 45 degrees is half of a right angle. So you see how these walls are right angles, like right angles to the front and the back, not to each other, but okay, bevel those triangle edges like that. Okay, just giving myself a straight edge here, theoretically. Maybe. These side slabs are 1 inch wide. That's 1 inch. And that seems to be a pretty good width. You don't want to go too thin because then these don't stand up. So I feel like, if you go much thinner than one inch on the width here, that might start to be a problem. So, something to think about. Basically, I'm going to cut out an inch wide ribbon kind of shape. So I'm just going to measure an inch there and measure an inch here. Measure. All right. Hopefully that'll be good. All right, let's measure this so we know how long these need to be. Just under 4 inches. It looks like 3 3/4. And then the bottom is 2 3/4. A little bit more. 3 3/4 and 2 3/4. Oh. Okay. I'm going to run inside real quick. I've been drinking a little bit too much coffee, so I got to release some. I apologize. I'll be right back. Sorry about that. Okay. So let's see. We need 2 3 3/4. 3 3/4. And we need one that is 2 5/8. It looks like. Okay, 3 3/4. 1, 2, 3, 3/4. And then just eyeballing a rectangle from that. This is like not quite long enough to use for the other one, but we at least got one. We got at least one side out of this. Okay, so bevel the rectangle ribbon kind of shaped guy that you got. Mm. Bob, welcome to the stream. All right. Okay, we need to get a couple more sides to our salt shaker, or whatever this one is. Salt or pepper, I guess. Probably the snowman would be the salt shaker, right? Like, don't you think? Don't you think that would make more sense for the snowman to be the salt? I could be wrong. Whoop. Okay, cut that off. Oh, kind of a little bit ugly there. 1, 2, 3, 3 3/4. Excuse me. And then just cut that a little bit off there on my line. There we go. There we go. Like that. And bevel the second rectangle. Okay. So you'll notice the rectangles, I only beveled the 2 long walls. We are going to bevel the short walls. There's just kind of, one notable thing about that is that you'll see so when we do the side, that's not too bad, right? 45 degrees. For whatever reason, the 45 degrees, you can usually kind of eyeball that and get it pretty close. But the bevel at the top, the point of this triangle / tree shape, that's going to be a different angle. And it can be useful to hold your wall to the form like this. And, well, if you can hold both of these at the same time. And you can kind of imagine half of this triangle point angle, right? So kind of where that would hit the form. And it's kind of a weird angle. It's like more it's more acute than 45 degrees, I guess. See, it's like a little bit more of a narrow kind of cut you're going to take off there. You could probably just eyeball that too, but it's just something to maybe take note of. So let's see here. We're gonna. So we take like a more narrow triangle off of that one. So, I mean, yeah, that's not too bad. You could probably kind of finagle that and work it out as you're forming it, but it is useful to maybe just kind of think about it before you even put it together. So you get that a little bit closer there. It's not too bad. And theoretically, these bottom corners also have a similar kind of thing where they're not the same angle as the side is. So it can be helpful to also do that again. Although, to be honest, they're closer than this. So it's, I feel like you pretty much do the same angle and you'll be fine. All right. So we're going to do a similar thing here. Do a really long, acute bevel on this one. Oops. Yeah. You gotta be kind of careful doing that because your X-Acto knife can dig into the clay if you hold it at too much of an angle. So that's what I did there. Okay, so if we hold this up, I don't think I can really hold this up until it's assembled more, but basically you can kind of see how those more narrow bevels kind of come together good on that point. So something to think about. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Dropping slabs. Let's see. What are some other Christmassy salt and pepper shakers you could do? Gingerbread man. Candy cane. Could you do a candy cane? It might be hard. Okay, this bottom side here is 2.5. Or, well, it's a little bit more. It's 2 5/8, but basically 2.5. And if you want to, you can do a similar thing here where you just kind of dry fit your slab and then eyeball that kind of weird angle. As long as these are relatively close, it's gonna be fine. So it's not like super important, but if you want to be really exacting about it. Okay. So let's go ahead and score all these bevels, put them together, and then start making it into a shaker. So a lot of times when you're working at this really tiny scale like this, you're going to have to just plan on scoring with an X-Acto knife or a needle tool or something. Just because like forks and stuff like that are maybe they're like a little bit too blunt for this scale of work. So just kind of plan on your scoring being a little bit more tedious because of that, but it's not too bad. I mean, it is small, so it's not like it's crazy. Okay, you don't need to do the what will become the top. You can score that if you want to. You don't really have to yet, though. And then you're going to put some slip on the pieces. What do I do with my brush? What I do with my brush? Walking all over looking for my brush. Sorry about that. Oh, there you go. Presents, so that's a really good idea. Santa related things, yeah. Yeah, very good. Good ideas, Bob. Very nice. Okay. So these pieces, they can be hard to pick up. Sometimes you gotta stab them. Get that on there. Looks like maybe I needed a little bit more off on this one, so just trimming a touch off. Just trimming off a little bit of that. So, as long as those bevels are, in the neighborhood of where they need to be, you should be fine. One of the advantages of doing this when the clay still has a little bit of softness to it is that you can kind of, smash things together a little bit. So something I'll do, I'll kind of just put my 2 fingers on, these faces and just kind of bring them a little bit towards the corner. You can do a little bit of corner pinching like this, but you really want to make sure that you're not like pinching the corner and turning it into a, weird kind of shaped thing. So kind of be gentle with corner pinching. But yeah, there you go. Kind of, it's like a leather hard kind of almost way of thinking about it. But when you're at this scale, it doesn't have to be leather hard. You can just kind of push the wet clay together and it'll support its weight when it's small like that. And then just one last kind of thing to do is use a clean rib tool, not one with a bunch of dry clay all over it, and just kind of gently rib these corners on the top, then on the side. And you can do it on the side walls too. Okay. A little bit of damp sponge there, just kind of gently, just to make sure I got a kind of a attached edge there, kind of cleaning off the slip so I can see it a little bit better and that sort of thing. Okay. So if you look into your little pie-shaped tray thing, or pie slice shaped tray, if there's gaps where the walls meet the bottom, think about putting a little tiny coil in those. If they're pretty tight, which mine were, just make sure that maybe put a little bit of extra slip over those, and then just maybe with something like this. That's just a plastic chopstick. I'm just gonna lightly go over these joints, kind of smooth them together. If you don't have any gaps, you don't need to put the coils into these, these little tiny scaled things like that. I mean, you can, but you don't really have to. Just kind of make sure that there's no crevices. Also, that point, go over that point like that. Make sure it's got a smooth joint. Okay. Don't go too crazy with the slip. You don't really need a lot of slip in there. I used a little bit more than what I maybe needed to. That's okay. I would just set this aside now and let it stiffen up a little bit while we make the snow person. The gender neutral snow person. So this is where we're going with that. This is the direction we're going. All right, snow guy, let's get him to that point. Okay, same wall depth on the snowman. Make these 1 inch wide. One inch wide. Hopefully this slab isn't drying out too much as I do this. It needs to bend pretty well when we do the snowman's contours. I probably should have done that first, now that I think about it. Probably should have done the snow guy first. Oh well. Them's the breaks. Maybe if I put some water on this slab. And the walls for the snowman, I would basically do it as a base, and then if you can roll out a really long one, you could do a just single slab all the way around from this side of the base to the other side of the base, or you could do it as two halves. I think that's what I did on the first one, because it might be hard to get a super long slab like that. So doing it as a 1/2 and then a second half, that's definitely a good idea. And probably what I'll do again. Okay, the base on this snowman is, let's see here, one and a little bit less than 1.5. It's 1 3/8. It looks like. And keep in mind, something like these snowmen, it's a good idea that they have a flat base. So that is a base that is 1 3/8 inch across. You want to give them that flat base so that they'll stand up. Okay, 1 3/8. 1 3/8. Okay. Okay, beveling these little panels here. And also make sure you bevel the snowman. So it's not too bad. I mean, you'll notice you kind of have to cut towards these, whatever those are called, impressions, where the contour kind of goes in like that. You got to cut towards those because you can't really come into them. Maybe you could. For the most part, though, you'll see me try to cut towards those like that. So like that. And then I'll cut towards the other one like this. Probably my fingers blocking the camera. Okay. So it looks like I'll have to roll out another like little bit of clay for the. Oops, almost smashed that. For the other side, but we can get most of this at this point, I think. All right, score the beveled edges of your snow person and the beveled edges of this stuff. All right. So I'm going to start with the what will eventually be the bottom of the snowman. I'm going to start with that. Looks like I cut the bevel a little bit too much, so it kind of, it's not exactly 90 degrees, but that's okay. And then with this side piece here, hopefully it has enough wetness to it that it's still kind of plastic. Yeah, it looks like we're good. If that's dried out too much, it'll probably crack when we bend it around the form. So we'll find out very soon if it's too dry. Yeah. So basically, I would just put it on there like that at first. You see that? It's kind of like it doesn't really match the contour quite yet. That's all right. It doesn't have to match it yet. We can trim off the stuff we know we're not going to need. So we're going to do this in two parts. So I'll just cut it straight up at the top of the crown of the head here. Get rid of that. My walls have slightly different heights. You can kind of see there, yeah. This one's like a little bit shorter than that one. Yeah, we'll have to trim the tall one a little bit. It'll be okay. Okay, so these contour areas, basically I'm just gonna kind of press the clay towards it a little bit. It doesn't all have to go at once, just kind of taking my time. The sidewall for the snowman needs to be, kind of soft so it'll bend like this. And then kind of holding the form a little bit, you can kind of round it from the inside like this. And up here too. Kind of see what I'm doing there. And as long as you can pretty much get this wall to follow that contour like 90% of the way, it's going to work out just fine. Probably what I should do is take some of that inner corner off so that this doesn't have to be messed with in the first place. Oh well. Cool. So we got to make another side for the snowman. So let's get some soft clay out. Jeez. Do I have soft clay? Do I even have soft clay? Okay. Roll this out. Put it together, etc. Okay. Okay. All right. 1 inch. 1 inch. Shit. Okay. Okay, let's see here. Score this guy. I guess you could bevel this too if you want. It's probably optimal to bevel that a little bit, just so you get a little bit more connection surface there. All right. Okay. Cool. And carefully remove the excess. Carefully removing the excess and kind of fitting it up here. And pretty close. Pretty close. Welcome to the stream, Stephanie. Okay. Okay, so now you're going to do a similar thing here. Just kind of use your finger to carefully form the wall to be a little bit more snowman-like or snow person-like. Just trimming off some excess up there. Bringing some of this stuff together. And, just kind of visually inspect it. A lot of the times when you have to form these walls, you'll have this situation where they're not 90 degrees anymore. It's like you kind of accidentally form them so they lean in or lean out or whatever. So just kind of visually inspect that. And you should be able to kind of just push stuff around at this scale and kind of correct it. If the clay gets a little bit stretched out, it's not like it's a big deal, right? Because it's so small. It's not like it's going to have to support weight or anything like that. Oh, did I just not bevel this side? Is that what I did? Because I'm like, why is it this side so much taller? Oh, I just didn't bevel it. So, try not to do this. It's a lot harder to bevel these when they're upright. Yeah, there you go. That looks a lot more even now, doesn't it? Okay. Getting our snowman ready. Shaping it with my finger. Cool. Not too bad. So what I'll do now is I'll go over the outer joints with my slip like this, then rib them, just like with the tree. If I can find my rib tool. Oh, yeah, there it is. Put it over there. And yeah, same deal here. Gift card rib. Do the side, then do the back. Do the side a little bit more if you want. So basically all the joints, both horizontal, vertical, just rib them on both sides. Up here to the top of the head. And you can take a damp sponge over those too, because a lot of times the ribbing it'll give you a little bit of like boogeriness on there. So you do a little bit of damp sponging, you can kind of clean that up and get a better feel for if it's even. So a little bit of damp sponge on that edge. A little bit careful. If you're too rough with this, you can kind of take off some of the edge, maybe more than what you want. Like if you want any of the corners to be, nice and crisp, the damp sponge does not really lend itself to that. But it does help you smooth out corners, that's for sure. Okay. Cool. And then just like with the tree, go ahead and you don't need to do a whole lot of slip, but get some amount of slip into the joint down here and also these vertical joints. And I kind of went a little bit, I did a little bit more maybe than what I really needed to, but it's all right. Just get some slip in the corners down there. And smooth them away now. Go ahead and I have a chopstick here, but you could use the back of a paintbrush. That'd probably be the most available thing. If you have severe gaps, you may need to put a coil into them. So if you have like big gaps in these joints, that's something you may need to do. Okay, so looking at our triangle, Christmas tree, conifer, whatever you want to call it, you can take a Q-tip over the joints now if you want to, or if you don't have any Q-tips, your brush, if it's 90% damp or dry, but there's still just a little bit of slip dampness on there, you can use that in the corners too to kind of smooth whatever the chopstick left behind, because the chopstick might leave a little bit of a trough there, and that's not too bad. That's actually fine, but it's just that if there's any kind of like surface there that may impede salt or pepper kind of movement. Go ahead and smooth that that down. And these are good brushes for this, the flat brush. Kind of get it into the corners like that. So just taking that kind of trough out of the bottom. Okay. Not bad, right? So before we close these off, it's a good idea to put all the holes in now. And the reason for that is the inevitable kind of drilling these holes in the piece. That creates blowout on the inside. And if this thing's closed off, we don't have any way to clean that up. So I would strongly advise that you drill your holes while the piece is in this kind of state. The bottom hole, you can, on Amazon, you can look up stoppers for salt and pepper shakers. Stoppers for salt and pepper shakers. And they make plastic ones that have the kind of like little shape. It's like a little cup kind of shape. And you could definitely look those up and go by whatever the diameter is on there. Make yours a little bit bigger so that hopefully it'll fit after it's fired. I think the more forgiving thing to do is use cork. And they sell cheap packs of cork on Amazon where you get like a multitude of cork sizes, like 0 through 5 or whatever. And I would say that's probably the more forgiving thing to do, just because you can, use a different cork, or maybe even, the same cork works. It's just you got to jam it in slightly more. The only thing about the cork thing, of course, is that you'll need to put a foot on your shaker. So you see how this formed? This has a foot here. And that's because the cork invariably won't, fit flush. There'll be a little bit of it sticking out, right? So you got to put a foot on these, or else the cork, it won't be able to sit without that. So that's what I would say. Pick up some cork on Amazon. It'll be a little bit more forgiving. If you want to do the plastic stoppers, that's definitely fine. And the plastic stoppers, they sit a lot more flush on the surface. So it's not like you need to put a foot in that case. It's just that the hole you drill also needs to be much, much more correct in that situation. Whereas with cork, it just needs to be a circle pretty much, and you'll probably be fine. So let's find the middle of this bottom here, and then we can drill a hole. And I'm pretty sure that with rectangles, you can find the middle of the rectangle if you connect to the corners, right? It's just like a square. So we'll connect those two corners, connect these two corners, if I can hold it. I don't think I can even hold it well enough to do that. There we go. Yeah, I guess that's the middle. Hopefully. It's not that big of a deal if it's not. So X marks the spot. They make hole cutting tools for clay, of course. These are tubes, and they're cut at a bevel, so you can kind of nicely cut. If you don't have one of those, that's fine. You can just use an X-Acto knife and kind of paddle bit your way through the piece. And by paddle bit, what I mean is this. This is like a paddle bit when you do that. And it's pretty chill. But you'll see the blown out kind of quality on the inside. And even if you use a hole cutting tool, you very well may get some blowout on the inside. So even if you have a hole cutting tool, it still behooves you to do your hole before you close off the piece, just in case. So basically, I'll do a hole like that, and then I might trim it like this, just kind of following that contour of the circle, cutting a little bit more clay away, cutting a little bit more clay away. And then cutting away the blown out, kind of exploded looking boogery bits like this. And on the inside too. So the inside is kind of the most important thing. Make sure the inside gets cleaned up. That way you can close off this form. The outside, honestly, it can still look kind of shitty because you'll have plenty of time to clean that up. And if you have a straight edge rib that you can fit in there, you can do some of this too. Clean that up. And basically just take your time with it. The outside doesn't need to look perfect, but the inside, hopefully you can get looking pretty good. And basically it'll just be some kind of mixture of cutting away the boogery stuff or maybe ribbing the boogery stuff. But after a couple passes, you should mostly be able to get that flat on the inside. Right? So that's good. That's basically what you want. And it's a similar deal with the holes up here too. You're going to do those now so that you can clean up the underside prior to closing this form off. Because once this is closed off, that's like the last train to Christmas Town. It's the last train for all the good little boys and girls. Everyone else is going to go to hell. Oh, that got dark. Let's see. So the holes that the actual stuff comes out of. So there's a little bit of a thing here. I think that if you have access to an electric kiln, if you're still able to fire pieces like we did at CE Mesa, you're probably going to want your shaker holes to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 1/8 inch in diameter. So that's like a little bit wider than a toothpick. It's maybe like twice as wide as a toothpick. And the reason for that is, you may or may not recall, the clay, by the time you have dried it and then bisque fired it and then glaze fired it to cone 5 or whatever mid-fire temperature you're doing, that hole is going to be a bit smaller than it was when you first made it, right? So it starts out as an 1/8 like this, but by the time you're done with it, it might be quite small. So I think that if you're firing stuff in an electric kiln, you probably want these to be about 1/8 of an inch in diameter when the clay's wet. I could be a little bit wrong about that. Like maybe they can be a little bit more narrow, but I'm kind of thinking that they need to be a little bit wide. So if you're like me and you're barrel firing everything, my work is not shrinking anywhere near that much. Like my work's probably shrinking like 2 or 3%, not very much. So I probably could just use a toothpick for the shaker holes, but we'll go ahead and do it a little bit more. Well, maybe we'll use a toothpick to start them, but then we'll use this to kind of ream them out. Hopefully that kind of makes sense. So, I think I'm going to do a similar thing. I'm just going to put them on the side here. Put 3 holes on the side. Tray holes. Tray holes. Let's see. I'm going to just put it right next to each other so we can keep them similar. Okay. And I think the 3 hole probably good. If you want to do more or less or whatever, that's probably also fine. It's one of those things where, to be honest with you, I'm not 100% sure. So do what you want to do as far as that goes. But I might go about doing something like this, where I make just kind of lightly draw a triangle kind of thing. You see that? It's like a pretty sad attempt at a triangle there, David. Does he know what a triangle is? So I might do something like that. And then with my toothpick, do a hole in each corner. That way I can kind of have a little triangular design with my holes. But whatever you want to do. Like I said, this is something where you're going to be kind of like, whatever you want to do with this is going to be fine. So like I said, I'm just going to use toothpicks to start these holes. You could use your needle tool, whatever. Toothpicks seem to be good. And yeah, I mean, at my firing temperature, the toothpick hole's probably fine. See, I think that you start with this and then you fire in an electric kiln. I think this hole will probably be about like this by the time you're done. You dig what I'm saying? You dig? And I'm trying to kind of go into it in a 90 degrees kind of perpendicular fashion here. But I don't think that matters too much. I mean, basically just try not to stab the hole in at some weird angle. Which, that probably sounds somewhat obvious at first until you're doing it. And then you forget to think about that. And as much as possible on the inside, try not to really damage the opposite panel. It's not that big of a deal. You just have to clean it up a little bit if you do. All right. So like I said, you're probably, if you're firing stuff in an electric kiln, you're going to want to ream these out now to probably about 1/8 of an inch in diameter. If you have something that's 1/8 of an inch in diameter, you can use that, or you could just use the toothpick and kind of, ream it out a little bit, kind of wiggle it around in there, whatever you want to do. I have this acrylic rod left over from something, and it is 1/8 of an inch thick, I think. So I'm just going to use that. The acrylic rod. So kind of pop those holes a little bit bigger. It looks like the, the Scream mask. What's your favorite movie? What's your favorite movie, Sydney? Yeah, but damn, look how blown out that is on the inside, right? So just carefully cut away some boogers. Oops, wrong way. Sorry about that. Oh, God. How can I angle this? There you go. You can kind of see it. So just carefully cut away that stuff on the backside, get it kind of clean looking. But you can kind of imagine how if these, if you have a lot of excess boogery stuff on the inside, that's going to impede the salt and the pepper from being able to hit these openings, right? So... They'll blow them out. Sometimes you might have to use a toothpick to get, like if they get kind of lost in the corner down there. Just get out of there, buddies. Okay. So just cutting carefully, removing the little boogers. It's starting to look a lot cleaner. See in there? So yeah, you can imagine if you had closed this off and then made the holes just kind of, you get a lot of ugliness in there, you know? A whole lot of ugliness on the inside. And you don't want your clay to be like that, you know? There's enough people like that, so why do you want your clay to be like that? And blowing too is kind of a good strategy because sometimes these little boogers are impossible to get out, but you can kind of blow them out. Much better. Thank you, BJ, right? It's hard to get that angled for the camera. But yeah, the outside can still look not perfect. That's fine. We got plenty of time to clean up the outside. But you can clean it up now if you want to, too. I mean, it might be advisable to do this before you close off the form, just in case something weird happens. But for the most part, you don't really have to worry about the outside yet. So just lightly take your X-Acto knife over those edges. And then Okay, before you close this off, thanks, BJ. Before you close this off, make sure you get the booger out. If there's any loose boogers kind of hanging out in there, go ahead and see if you can gently remove those. If you have Q-tips, those might be useful for some of these tight corners. If you get just a slightly damp Q-tip into some of these tight areas, maybe you can clean up anything that might be left in there. But yeah, that's pretty much looking all right. Do a little bit of that, a little bit of that. Okay. So let's close this puppy up. And I'm going to put a little bit of moisture on this edge here. I can feel this form. It's just kind of drying out pretty rapidly because of, it's just dry out, I guess. So just putting a little bit of moisture onto the edge there so that hopefully if I need to, move the piece a little bit, kind of shift or bend things just slightly, hopefully it'll let me do that. Hopefully. All right, let's bevel the triangle here and see how it looks. And you can dry fit it before you score it and slip it, just to make sure it's gonna kind of it's gonna levelly kind of attach itself, and it looks like it will. It looks like you're gonna want something that looks about like that. But like for instance, if like this tip or something's like bent up or something like that, it means probably you need to bevel a little bit more off there to get it to fit in there. Mine's not like that. I just bent it like that on purpose, I swear. And if you're using recycled clay and there's like little bits of leaf or something in there, you can pull those out. Like that's basically what I just had to do there. Little bits of leaf. Okay. Put some slip on this puppy. It looks like this corner needed a little bit more scoring. Might as well just go over all the corners. And then, kind of lightly get this guy into place. And some light paddling is probably advisable. Light, keyword being light. Oh, maybe the keyword's paddling, actually. I don't know. Okay. And similar kind of going over the edges kind of thing now with a rib tool. So a couple passes on this side, a couple passes on the top, and then that's all right. Don't go too crazy there. You can remove a little bit more material than what you want. So don't go too crazy with that. Just a couple light kind of passes. And on this side especially, try to avoid messing up your holes. Although even if you mess them up, it'll still be better than it would have been if you had waited to drill them. Okay. Cool. And you can use a slightly damp sponge to take off the kind of excess boogery stuff that will oftentimes get created there. And similarly, just kind of, light with it. You can take off more than what you mean to pretty easily. Let's see how it's sitting. It's sitting pretty good and straight there. Sometimes you put these together and it'll have more of a lean to it. Yeah, it kind of leans if you look at it this way. But if we're going to put a foot on there, thankfully that's not really the end of the world because the foot can kind of straighten it out. And it does seem to have a very, very slight kind of lean. Let's see if I can angle it. You can kind of see that it has a slight, it's like 92 degrees. That's all right though. That's totally fine. You can do a little bit of paddling like that, popping it on the ground like a little bunny foo-foo, bopping it on the ground. Going through the forest and bopping it on the ground. Cool. Okay, so this one, you can put a foot on it now. Or, if you're going to move on to the snowman, just put this in a bag so it doesn't dry too much. And on a related note, I'm going to go grab my white slip so I can put some white slip on this and start getting ready to sgraffito it. So I'll be right back. I'm going to grab the white slip. Get some coffee too. All right, I got my white slip here. And it's a little bit dried out, so mix it up with some water. Yeah, that should be all right. This white slip is B-Mix. And I think if we stand it up, we can get all the vertical walls. Now, I don't really think that you have to worry so much with the slip filling up these holes, but if you are worried, what you can do is maybe break a toothpick a little bit so you don't get stuff in there. But yeah, I don't think you really have to do that with the slip. I'm not going to do that. That's just going to be extra crap in my way. If you were doing this with glaze, you're going to have to be a lot more careful about it with glaze, because unless these holes are really wide, you're not going to want glaze to get into these holes. So if you're making one of these and you have access to kiln and you're going to glaze things, definitely keep that in mind. You don't want glaze to get into the hole. Even if it's just a little bit in the firing process, it could kind of close that up. So either put toothpicks into those holes so the glaze doesn't get in, or paint over it and then use a damp toothpick and kind of scrape it out really well. Whatever you got to do. Whoa. Can I hold this and get the other wall? Looks like it, just barely. Okay, let this dry. 3 or 4 coats probably for that, and then we do some Sgraffito next week. Probably it looks like. Okay, the foot for these pieces, not too bad. Basically, coil. We can flatten the coil a little bit and basically make a little rectangle picture frame kind of thing on the bottom. Brr. How are we doing on time? 3 o'clock? And the offer still stands if anyone's interested in picking up slip for the purposes of Sgraffito. That offer still stands. I still got plenty of clay to make slip from. If you want red slip or white, although my red's not going to be very good. That's the still the caveat there. Red is kind of a charitable definition or charitable name maybe for it. Maybe more accurate would be poopy brown. Would that be is that acceptable? That's maybe more accurate. But I don't know that has an official Pantone designation, poopy brown. That's Pantone number 450F7 or something. Brr. I'm like shivering from the cold. I can't take it. Let's see. I have this thing sitting over here, this little leftover scrap of clay. So I'm thinking maybe I can get some foot out of it because it's still pretty plastic, pretty wet. Okay, so maybe I can just use my paint mixing stick like this. Yeah, I think that'll be good. So basically cut out these rods, these square rods. Is that what those would be called? Whatever those would be considered. If you don't have any leftover wet slab that you can cut like this, you can roll coils for sure. And I would say roll them and then press them a little bit to give them a flat side. If you just use them as like round coil rods, you can still do that, but you have to do more cleaning and scratching on the surface to get it smooth. So I would say cut them so they're flat first, flat on at least two sides, two faces of the shape. And then it's kind of like if you're making a picture frame. See that? So you kind of make like a picture frame on the bottom of it. And yeah, that'll be nice. So score the that little piece pretty well here. And yeah, we should be able to place this now. Oh, whoa. And yeah, just try to make sure it's flush with the front or back. You know, I guess these maybe don't even necessarily have a front or a back, but try to make sure it's flush there. And in fact, maybe even just a little bit of overhang. That way you can still kind of shave that down, but at least flush. Flush, and then maybe just like a hair's width of overhang. So I guess not flush. Does he know what flush means? No. Nope. Straight no. Straight no, dog. Okay. Similar thing here. I'm just kind of dry fitting it to make sure it's the right length. So same thing here, flush or maybe even just a hair worth of overhang if you're worried about there being a nice surface. And now we got to roll out a little bit more to get the ends here. But basically, you can kind of see what's going on. Oh, I can't pick up the other one yet. No. So, if you don't have extra slab, just roll out a little coil and then press it so it's flat like those shapes pretty much. Okay. And it's just a little bit over 1/4 of an inch in diameter. That's good. And so just using these 2 paint mixing sticks to kind of square off this little coil like that. Are you going to do a dreidel and a... yeah, we could do that, Stephanie. Is that a request? Is that a request of some sort, Stephanie? Yeah, actually, a dreidel could be fun, right? Yeah. Well, there you go. I guess it is. Now, you can't use this dreidel for gambling purposes, though. That would be against school policy, I think. I have no idea. I doubt that. I doubt that's the case. Yeah. Yeah. Dreidel should be good. I mean, they're just like little solid little dudes, right? So they're not too bad. Like next week, graffito on these, and then do some dreidel stuff. Will it still be Hanukkah next week? Whatever. It doesn't really matter too much. I mean, it's not like it's Christmas now. So. All right, very good. We'll do a dreidel, Stephanie. Okay. Get some more slip on that. Will it fit? Okay, so it's going to look kind of like a little picture frame kind of thing. And that means we're on our way. So part of the reason why you maybe want to leave a little bit of an overhang when you do this is so you can then score and slip this into place, and hopefully after that the foot will be flush with the form. We're pretty close to it. So just kind of lightly going over this joint here with my little Frankenstein kind of stitches all the way around. And also you want to do this on the interior of your foot. So which can be kind of hard to get to, so make sure you take your time there. There we go. Oh, can I see down here? Okay, let's go ahead and rib the joint now on the foot, and you want to make sure that it's well attached. It would be tragic if you start ribbing this and the foot's not attached well enough and it gets loose and moves around or something. So make sure it's nice and stuck down. if there's any gaps or like you still have some line that won't, it's just persistent and won't go away, that's totally all right. You just got to let this stiffen up a little bit, and you can put a coil in there to fill that up. So for instance, this side, it seems like there might be a little bit of a persistent kind of line over here. That's okay. Just let this stiffen. I can put a coil in there. It might even just be so minor that it doesn't even matter. Yeah, I can kind of tell it's in that area. That's okay. Whoa, there's a toothpick stuck to my sponge. Pretty good. Pretty good. These corners. Gotta be careful with the feet because the clay there is softer, so you can like apply a certain amount of pressure up here, but then when you get down to the foot, if you apply the same amount of pressure, it might be a little bit too much. So kind of keep that in mind. Okay, the inner face of the foot, I would just, where's my thing at? Kind of similar to what we did on the inside. Put some slip there and then lightly use a chopstick over the joint. Like that. And then a little bit of damp sponge treatment over the whole kind of foot assembly. And I think, can I pick up the other one yet? Maybe I can. Yeah. And you can make the foot look a little bit more refined by beveling it at this point. So you kind of see how this one has a little bit more of like a refined kind of thinner kind of edge to that foot. And basically, just kind of lightly bevel it. Like that. Okay, so that's probably about as much as I can do there. Let that stiffen up a little bit and I can refine it a little bit more. But that gives you some clearance so that your cork, it'll stick out a little bit, but you're going to be all right because you got that foot there. Gives you a little bit of height so that the cork doesn't get in the way. Pretty cool, huh? Pretty, quote, cool. Okay, doing a similar kind of thing with the snowman here real quick. Put the holes in before we close it off. Yeah, put the holes in before we close it off and close it off. So same deal. I'm going to try to put the filler hole down here in the middle of this bottom. So just connecting the corners, making an X, something like that. And then I don't have a hole cutting tool, so I'm just going to drill through it with my X-Acto knife. And once again, the whole reason you do this before you close it off is so you can clean off that blown out section. That blown out area. Careful. So yeah, I mean it's not too bad. Pretty much, you just drill it, cut off that blown out stuff. You can rib it a little bit. Then you can use the toothpick on that edge. And basically just take your time. It'll probably take a couple kind of treatments. But eventually you should be able to get that inner face looking really nice and clean. And for the snowman, as far as where you should put the holes here for shaking the salt or whatever you have in here. I did it in the eyes. I thought that would be fun. But you could just do it on top or whatever. It's up to you. So, once again, I'm not 100% sure on what you're going to need these shaker hole diameters to be on this, but I have a sneaking suspicion that if you're able to fire your work in an electric kiln with glaze, etc., that you're probably going to want these shaker holes to be 1/8 of an inch when you make them, or in that neighborhood. I mean, hell, it might actually end up being more than that, but I'm kind of tending to think that 1/8 of an inch is probably good. So that's what I use the rod for. And then clean up the blown out insides. For something like this snowman, it might behoove you to try a loop tool to get those out. I just wanted to say behoove. You might have a good time if you use a loop tool. We're just trying to have a good time. So kind of using a loop tool over that surface. Oh yeah, that's not bad. Brr. Okay. Okay, it's looking clean. It's looking clean. Okay, so before I close this off, I'm just going to use my very, very slightly damp brush here and smooth out the joints, the corners on the inside. I probably should have done this before I did those holes, but that's okay. Just to kind of take the edges off, make sure that we're not going to end up with like little bits of salt getting stuck on any sort of hard edge down there or anything like that. Cool. All right. Okay, we're going to score the bevel on the walls now. These walls that are sticking straight up to nowhere. That angle is super weird. Where's it at? Where's it at? Okay, then we're gonna bevel this snowman too. Might be a good idea to put a little bit of moisture on this edge, just like we did last time, just in case we need to do a little bit of bending and stuff like that on the wall. Hopefully this little bit of extra moisture helps it to do that. Try not to set that down on a bunch of boogery stuff. Bevel. Bevel. Okay, got this snowman face beveled. Go ahead and score. All right, put some slip on it. Make sure there's not any loose boogers on there. They're going to end up inside the piece. So the snowman, just because of how weird it's shaped, it's going to require a little bit more kind of bending and stuff. So just kind of be prepared for that. But that looks like it'll be all right. We'll do some paddling here. So that's a paddling. And just kind of try not to drop it. Try not to put the face onto a dirty part of canvas because those holes are down there, so you don't want those to get mucked up. And yeah, go ahead and rib these joint areas. On the side. And then on the other side. And then you can do it over here. So go ahead and rib it, and then you can take a damp sponge and clean up any of the excess stuff. And just kind of be conservative with this, a little bit gentle, so you don't take off more than what you want. Do this side too. Cool. So the snowman's going to also need a foot. Similar kind of deal, like make a little picture frame for the bottom. And then you let it dry out and cover it with white slip. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. These little things, it's always fascinating when they take 3 hours to make these, right? Because it's like, what the hell? It takes as long to make these as it does make a big thing. But it's a fun scale to work at. If you haven't tried working at this scale, I would recommend it at this point. And by this scale, I mean like the 4-inch or less kind of scale. I don't know what that would be called, the precious scale, whatever you want to call that. But yeah, not too bad, right? It doesn't look like there's any questions about this in the chat as I've been doing it. So thanks for coming in, guys. Pretty much going to do the same thing in the class tomorrow. Maybe do a different shape, like gingerbread man, and like maybe something Santa related or present related. That was a good idea too, Bob. Yeah, that was a good one. So, yeah. Well, if you don't hear from me next week, it's because I said the word snowman too much and they're going to make me undergo sensitivity training. So that's the deal with that. Otherwise, I'll see you guys in a week. The dainty scale. There you go. Yeah.